It was a quiet Tuesday evening when Dr. Allison Jones first heard the ring. Not her landline, not the doorbell, it was her mobile. A soft chime, oddly melodic, yet completely unfamiliar. She furrowed her brow and looked down. The caller ID was blank. No name, no number, just a glowing green answer button, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat.
"That's odd," she muttered, thumbing her glasses higher up her nose.
Allison wasn't easily rattled. As a professor of digital history and tech ethics at King's College London, her days were filled with dissecting the intersection of past and present. Time, to her, was a dataset. Curiosity was her compass. So she answered. At first, the screen was black, then flickers, snowy static, a pop, a crackle, and then a face. His face.
Oh my God.
He stared back through the screen, solemn and confused. Pale skin, gaunt cheeks, deep-set eyes beneath heavy lids, a beard framing his jaw like ironwork, and atop his head, unmistakably, a stovepipe hat. Abraham Lincoln.
What manner of mirror is this?
Allison blinked. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears.
I don't, Mr. President?
You know me?
She nodded slowly, unable to form words. Her screen pulsed with the warm sepia glow of a gaslit room. Behind him, wooden bookshelves groaned under thick volumes. An inkpot and quill lay beside parchment papers, scrawled with looping cursive. It was a study, 19th century, authentic down to the last brass latch on the desk. And it wasn't CGI. There were imperfections, ink smudges, dust motes dancing in lamplight, the occasional creak of wooden floorboards.
This can't be real.
Real it may be, ma'am, but I assure you I am as perplexed as you.
He leaned in closer, peering at her image with the intensity of a man deciphering scripture.
May I inquire, are you a spirit, perhaps?
No, sir, just a person from the future.
That word, future, hung in the air like cannon smoke. Lincoln blinked slowly. Then he sat back, eyes wide with wonder.
From the future, and this is how you appear, through a tiny window?
Through a phone, yes. It's like a box that connects people across time and space.
He nodded faintly, almost as if this news only slightly edged out the daily absurdities of civil war, secession, and death lists.
Miss Jones, forgive me. I presume your name is Jones? I see it written beneath your image.
Yes, Dr. Allison Jones.
Doctor, yet you are no physician, I take it?
No, a historian. I study people like you.
There was a pause. And then the kind of silence that stretches not out of awkwardness, but gravity.
Then perhaps I may be of use to you.
Allison felt her hands go clammy. The air seemed charged. Somewhere far off, a car alarm chirped. But here, in this impossibly intimate pocket of time, the 16th President of the United States waited to talk. And so began the most important conversation of her life. Chapter 2. A talking window into the past. The room around Dr. Jones seemed to fade into shadow as her focus narrowed to the glowing rectangle in her hands. Abraham Lincoln sat before her, adjusting in his high-backed chair with the same unease a man might feel meeting a ghost.
This apparatus, it sees me, hears me. You say you are in London?
Yes, London, England, in the year 2025.
Lincoln didn't speak for a moment. He simply looked at her, deeply, intently, as if the lines on her face might confirm her impossible words.
God help us, 2025.
It's a lot to take in. I'm still trying to make sense of it myself.
Allison's academic mind fired on all cylinders. This wasn't an actor or some elaborate deepfake. His responses were too spontaneous. His mannerisms too fluid, too unfiltered. Every word, every glance had the weight of lived experience behind it.
Mr. Lincoln, may I ask, what year is it for you right now?
1863, September. My hair is turning gray faster than I'd like, and this nation may well be tearing itself apart.
It tracked. She thought back. Antietam had passed. Gettysburg, though brutal, was still fresh, and the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed earlier that year.
Today I received a letter, another mother mourning her sons. I sometimes wonder if they will ever stop.
I'm so sorry. Your burden is unimaginable.
He raised his hand as if to wave off sympathy, but paused. Something in her voice held him there.
You say you study history. Does that mean you study me?
Yes, your presidency, the war, your speeches. You're one of the most studied figures in modern history.
His eyes widened just a fraction. Then a grim chuckle escaped his lips.
Studied. I hope I'm not remembered as merely a butcher in a black coat.
No, you're remembered for your integrity, for standing firm when it mattered most, for freeing the enslaved, for preserving the Union.
The words hung in the air, powerful and true, but they seemed to weigh on him more than lift.
And yet each morning I awake with dread, not of battle but of failure. That I've misjudged or delayed or hesitated too long.
Even great leaders are haunted by doubt, sometimes especially them.
Allison felt a strange dissonance. She had taught Lincoln's speeches, debated his legacy, quoted him in lectures. Yet here he was, raw and real, stripped of myth. And stranger still, the phone call seemed to ignore logic. The battery, now long past its limit, showed no signs of depleting. The signal remained strong. The digital clock on her wall had stopped ticking.
Do you want to know how your story ends?
Would it change what I do?
Allison hesitated, a question within a question.
I don't know. Maybe it would change everything, or maybe it wouldn't matter at all.
Then perhaps it is best I not know. Let me walk my own road, even if it leads to ruin.
She admired him then. Not the myth, not the marble statue. The man. A man holding the weight of a fractured nation and asking only for the dignity of not knowing too much.
But I would be honored, Dr. Jones, if you would speak with me again. You are a fine companion in this quiet hell of leadership.
I'd be honored, Mr. President.
The screen dimmed briefly, flickered with faint static, then cleared again. The portal between times remained open, but Allison could feel something shifting. And in that flicker of data and time, history itself had begun to tremble. Chapter 3. The Weight of the War. The next call came without warning. No ringtone, no vibration, just the screen lighting up, casting a soft glow in the early morning dark. Allison sat upright in bed, heart pounding, the faint image of Lincoln slowly sharpening into view.
I hope I do not intrude, Doctor.
Not at all, I was just resting. Please call me Allison.
Allison, then?
He looked different this time, not just in posture or expression, but in presence. The man on the screen looked older, heavier, as though time had pressed more weight into his shoulders since their last conversation.
I am told the casualty list from Chickamauga may exceed 16,000.
The name sent a chill through Allison. She hadn't realized the call had jumped ahead in time again. Chickamauga, September 1863, one of the bloodiest battles of the Civil War.
That's a staggering toll.
Staggering. And it is only one battle, one name among hundreds, each with its mothers, its widows, its orphans.
He pressed his fingers to his brow, drawing slow circles, as if trying to erase the memories.
I walk the halls of this house and the silence is unbearable. I fear to look Mary in the eye. She's lost too much. We all have.
Do you speak to her about it?
We speak, but we do not say.
Allison watched him closely. The mythology of Lincoln always portrayed him as stoic, enduring. But in this moment, she saw a man fighting to hold his soul together.
You're carrying a nation's grief, Mr. President. It's not weakness to feel it.
I must. If not I, then who? If I allow the sorrow to master me, I fail the Union. I fail them all.
The word union struck a chord. To Lincoln, it was more than a political ideal. It was almost sacred. Allison leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees, trying to read between the lines of his exhaustion.
Do you ever wonder if the Union can truly heal? If it will ever be whole again?
Every hour, the cracks run deeper than the maps show. This war, it is not merely of muskets and men, but of soul against soul, north and south, brother against brother. How does one stitch that wound closed?
She could have told him about the Reconstruction era, the struggles, the assassinations, the slow march towards civil rights, but she didn't. Not yet. Sometimes healing doesn't mean going back to what was, but becoming something new.
You speak with the wisdom of years I have not seen.
He leaned closer to the screen, his lined face now inches from hers.
Tell me, Allison, when you study these years, my years, what is it that you see? Do they speak of failure, of folly, or of purpose?
Both. They speak of struggle, of terrible cost, but also of purpose, yes, of change that echoed through generations.
Then perhaps there is merit in enduring, even if I do not see the fruit of it.
Allison wanted to reach through the screen and grasp his hand, to offer something more tangible than words.
You said I am remembered. That means I do not live to see peace, does it not?
Her breath caught. This was the question, the one she had feared, the one she had no right to answer.
I can't tell you that, but I can tell you that you are remembered, deeply, reverently, even loved.
He looked down, a flicker of something passed over his face. Gratitude? Resignation?
Then perhaps that is enough.
The image shimmered briefly, not with static, but like heat off desert stone. Then it stabilized again. But Allison knew the connection wouldn't last forever. The thread between them was fragile, and the questions were only getting harder. Chapter 4. Should I tell him? Allison stared at the black screen long after the call ended. The phantom warmth of Lincoln's voice still lingered, echoing through her small London flat like a hymn. She had crossed a line, not of ethics, not yet, but of emotion. The man on the screen was no longer a figure from her lectures. He was real, frighteningly so.
I can't keep talking to him and pretending I'm just a historian.
What was her responsibility? Preserve the integrity of history, offer comfort to a man bearing the sins of a nation, or warn him of the bullet waiting in the shadows of a theatre box. She reached for her notebook, the one Shed started keeping since the first call. The cover was already worn, pages filled with every word he said, every glance, every historical timestamp.
If I tell him, would he believe me? Would he change anything? Could I be responsible for making things worse?
Allison didn't sleep that night. She paced. She pored over biographies, timelines, every account of Lincoln's final months, Booth's movements, security lapses, the mood in Washington. At dawn, she made a decision. She needed perspective. She reached for her phone and called her old friend and mentor, Dr. Nina Mahmood, professor of historical philosophy and renowned for her ruthlessly logical mind. Phone dialing tone, then click.
Allison? Good grief, it's early. What's going on? Nina, I need to ask you a question. Hypothetical. Urgent. You're not calling me about time travel again, are you? Yes.
There was silence on the line. Then Nina's voice dropped into something more serious.
Okay, I'm listening. Say someone from the past contacts you. Somehow. And you're sure it's real. Not a hallucination, not a simulation. Just real. And this person is significant? Abraham Lincoln, you're serious.
As a heart attack.
And you want to tell him what? That he's about to be assassinated?
I don't know. I don't even know how this is happening. But I talk to him, and he talks back. And it's him, Nina. He's tired and real and so human. And I don't know what to do with that.
If you tell him, and he lives, you could unravel everything. Reconstruction, the 13th Amendment, even civil rights movements. You might save him but destroy what he died to create.
But if I don't tell him, I let him walk into a trap alone.
Silence pulsed between them. Two scholars, both aware of the impossible weight carried in a decision that had already been made in another century.
Allison, maybe the point isn't to change history. Maybe it's to witness it more truthfully than ever before. Maybe that's your role.
Thanks, Nina. I needed something.
The call ended, but her turmoil didn't. She turned off her phone and sat at her desk, staring into the empty screen. And then it flickered. A burst of static, a warm glow. The unmistakable figure of Lincoln, once again leaning over his desk.
You came back. I was not sure you would.
I had to.
I have thought much about our last conversation. I find myself more comforted by your voice than by all the reports of my generals.
Allison opened her mouth. Her lips trembled. The warning sat there on the edge. But her heart resisted.
Mr. President, if you knew something tragic would happen, would you want to stop it? Even if it meant the course of your people would be forever altered?
If I could stop a tragedy, I would. But not at the expense of our principles. The future must be earned, not stolen.
The decision settled in her chest. She wouldn't tell him. Not because he didn't deserve to know, but because she knew he already did. Somewhere deep down, Lincoln carried the knowledge that his path might end in darkness. But he walked it anyway. Chapter 5. A fractured connection. Days passed with no call. Allison checked her phone obsessively, every vibration jolting her like a thunderclap, only to reveal emails, social notifications, anything but him. She told no one else, not even Nina. The connection felt too fragile, too sacred, and too dangerous. Then, just as she was beginning to doubt it had ever been real, the screen lit up. The call came without warning, like a whisper from the past.
Mr. President, I was starting to think.
I can't stay long today. He looked pale, or paler than usual. The bags under his eyes had deepened. His movements were sluggish.
Are you ill?
No more than usual. I merely find myself thinning.
Static danced along the edge of the screen. Audio lagged. His voice began to fracture, not just through technology, but in time.
I have been thinking.
Mr. President, your connection is unstable.
The screen flickered. For a moment, it wasn't his study in the background, but darkness. Then a flash, a different room, a chair overturned, a flash of red curtains.
Ford's Theater.
She tapped the screen, tried toggling settings, but nothing worked. She felt utterly helpless.
You asked about healing, Allison. I have little faith that it can come in my time.
Then trust that it comes after. that your sacrifice won't be in vain.
He looked up slowly, as though hearing her through a tunnel of wind and storm.
I dreamed of a funeral in the White House, a crowd weeping, and I asked who was dead, and the answer came.
Stay with me, Mr. Lincoln.
I fear I already walk beside my shadow.
Then the screen glitched. A harsh, piercing tone screeched through the speaker. The image shattered into pixels.
Mr. President.
Then a click, and the image returned. But it wasn't Lincoln. It was her own face, reflected back at her. For 10 long seconds, she stared at herself, alone. Then, a single line of text appeared at the bottom of the screen. Do not grieve, you bore witness.
What does that mean?
The screen went dark, and this time it stayed that way.
Is this the end of the connection? Is that all there is?
She didn't know, but she knew this. Something had changed. The calls were growing unstable. The past was pulling away. And the clock was ticking. Allison sat at her desk with her notebook open, but her pen hung motionless between her fingers. The message on the screen haunted her. Do not grieve. You bore witness. It was a benediction and a warning, an ending and a beginning, and she didn't know how to live with it.
Was it a goodbye, a glitch, or a test?
She went back to basics. In times of confusion, she turned to research. She pulled her worn copy of the collected works of Abraham Lincoln from the shelf and began cross-referencing every detail from their conversations. Every speech, every documented moment. She wanted to find the seams, the places where what he told her diverged from the historical record. But it all matched, perfectly. Too perfectly.
Nina, it's me again. I need your mind on something big.
That's never not terrifying. What is it?
I've been thinking about the consequences of knowledge. Of knowing. If you had the chance to tell someone from the past how things turn out, wars, politics, assassinations, do you do it?
You already know my answer? No, not unless they're already dead. And even then, tread lightly. Why?
Let's say the someone asked whether the Union would heal, whether his actions mattered, whether the cause of emancipation succeeded.
You're talking about Lincoln again.
Yes.
You're still in contact?
Not exactly. But I think, and I don't know how much to say, there's a weight to it, Nina. Like I'm standing in front of a dam and every word I say is another crack in the wall.
And if it bursts?
Then everything I know becomes uncertain, maybe even meaningless.
She paused, looking down at her notes, at a sketch she'd made of his weary face.
He's not just a figure to me anymore. He's Abraham. I see the pain behind the speeches, the exhaustion behind the eyes. He's lonely, Nina, and I don't know if offering him the truth helps him or curses him.
Maybe the best gift you can give him isn't information. Maybe it's understanding, a listener, a voice in the dark.
Allison nodded, even though no one could see her.
Then that's what I'll be, a witness.
That evening, the call came again. No ringtone, no vibration, just the warm pulse of light. She answered.
You're still there. I never left. Things have changed here. The air feels thinner, like a storm approaches, though the skies are clear. Sometimes change isn't loud. It moves in silence and shadow until it's already arrived. Allison, may I ask you something bold? Of course. Am I right to press this war forward? To keep pushing for union, even as it costs more lives than I can bear to count?
Allison closed her eyes. This was the question she'd been avoiding. The ethical chasm.
I can't tell you what's right, Mr. President, but I can tell you what history remembers. That your vision, your resolve, they changed everything. That you were the man who held a broken nation together with nothing but words and will and sorrow.
Then let that be enough.
The screen flickered again. Not from malfunction, but like something deeper, a tremor in the timeline.
Abraham, if you ever feel the darkness too strongly, just know someone is listening, always.
Then I am less alone than I believed.
And the call ended, like the slow closing of a door. One she hoped would open again, even if only once more. Chapter 7, History's Crossroads. The days blurred together. Allison moved through them like a ghost, teaching classes, attending meetings, drinking coffee that tasted like dust. Her body was present in 2025, but her mind drifted endlessly back to the 19th century. Each moment without a call felt like a breath held too long. She checked her phone obsessively, hoping for the flicker of light, the faint hum, the warm grain of his voice. When it finally came, a week to the hour since the last, it was in the middle of a seminar on historical revisionism. Irony, Allison noted, had impeccable timing. She dismissed the class early. The students barely noticed. And then, alone in her office, she answered.
Hello again.
You return with the morning.
He looked tired, yet dignified. A quiet gravitas clung to him like a shroud. He wore no coat today, just a simple shirt, sleeves rolled, ink stains on his cuffs.
Long night?
All nights are long when one wrestles with the soul of a nation. There was a stillness to this call, as if the moment itself knew it mattered.
I've read through the latest petitions. There are those who call me a tyrant for suspending habeas corpus. Others call me weak for not prosecuting the war more viciously.
That's what it means to lead. You're always wrong to someone, and usually right in ways they won't understand until years later.
Years later, they say. Will I see those years, Allison?
She didn't answer. He didn't press. The silence said everything.
I find myself thinking more of the world you live in. What sort of country did we become?
It's complicated. We advanced in ways you couldn't imagine, but we also faltered. We still wrestle with division, with race, with truth itself.
Then the war never truly ended. The battlefield simply changed.
He rose from his chair and walked slowly across the room. The camera tilted slightly as he paced, like the rhythm of thought itself.
I worry that I've traded peace for legacy, that by keeping the Union, I have merely prolonged the pain beneath it.
You've given people the chance to heal. That's what leaders do. They don't deliver paradise. They clear a path through the storm.
He stopped, one hand resting gently on a windowsill. The light outside his study was soft, like dawn or dusk.
Do you believe history has a direction? Or are we all merely wandering in different storms, hoping for shore?
I used to think history was a straight line. Now I think it's more like a tapestry, woven by many hands, some threads golden, some broken, but always connected.
He smiled then, a tired, aching smile but real.
I like that, a tapestry. Perhaps I will be just a single thread, but if I am woven among the better ones, then I have done well.
Softly, with reverence.
You're not just a thread, you're a knot, one that holds it together.
Narrator's soft static crackles. The connection began to waver again, not violently, more like a candle flickering in a draught. Lincoln, voice soft, distant.
If we speak again, tell me more of your time, of your people. I wish to know what became of the dream.
Doctor emotionally.
I will, I promise.
Narrator reflective, closing tone. And then the light faded. Allison sat there, hands trembling slightly, the phone cooling in her palm. She wasn't sure how much longer these conversations would last. But she knew now, without doubt, that they mattered. Chapter 8, Confessions. Narrator, quiet, contemplative. The next call came in the dead of night. No storm, no alarms, just the subtle illumination of Allison's phone on the bedside table, casting long shadows on the wall. Narrator, low, thoughtful tone. She didn't hesitate. No hesitation. No questions. She answered the way one might answer a heartbeat. Dr. Jones, soft, half asleep. Lincoln, voice low, gentle.
I hope I haven't disturbed your rest.
Dr. Jones, sitting up, brushing hair from her face.
It's all right, I've been expecting you.
Narrator, warm, tender tone. He was seated differently now, not at his desk, but in a worn leather chair by the fire. His face was partially shadowed. There was no paper in front of him, no books, just him. Slowly.
May I speak plainly tonight?
Dr. Jones.
You always can?
Lincoln, with a heavy exhale.
I am not the man history deserves.
Narrator paused, letting it land. Allison said nothing. She could feel what was coming.
I've signed orders that sent men to die. I've allowed cities to burn for the sake of preserving a country that no longer recognizes itself. And in the quiet moments, when I am left alone with my thoughts, I wonder if I have become the very tyrant they accuse me of being.
You haven't.
How would you know? You see the statue, the speeches, but you don't hear the cries of the mothers. You don't bury the letters I cannot answer.
He leaned forward, eyes glistening in the firelight.
Do you know what it's like to hold a nation together with your hands, only to feel the pieces slipping through your fingers, no matter how tightly you grasp?
No, I don't, and I won't pretend to. But I do know what it's like to study someone so deeply you think you know them, and then meet them and realize they carry more sorrow than any textbook could ever hold.
Lincoln bowed his head. His hand trembled slightly as he rested it over his chest.
My son Willie, he visits me in dreams. Sometimes he asks me why I let it all happen, and I never have an answer.
You were never meant to carry all this alone.
And yet no one else can. That is the bargain of leadership, is it not?
Allison reached forward, resting her fingers gently on the screen, knowing it did nothing, but needing to do something.
You're not perfect, Abraham. You made mistakes. But you also held fast when others faltered. You saw the humanity in people others called property. You tried to bind wounds others refused to admit existed.
And if I am to die for it,
Then you die remembered.
The fire behind him crackled. His image shimmered slightly, just enough to notice.
I have long suspected my life will be ended not by old age, but by the hand of someone who fears change more than death. That is the true enemy, Allison. Not rebellion, not war, but fear.
I know.
I do not wish to be idolized. But if history must remember me, let it not be for statues or speeches. Let it be for this, that I tried, in my flawed, fragile way, to do what was right.
Allison felt tears prick her eyes. She had nothing left to say, only silence, only reverence.
I thank you, my strange friend through the ether. I do not know what magic connects us, but I am grateful for it.
So am I.
The flames behind him dimmed. The static began to hum again. And as the image dissolved, Allison felt something inside her unravel. Not grief, exactly, but the ache of truth spoken too late. The next day, Allison didn't check her phone, not even once. She couldn't explain it, the quiet certainty, the stillness in her chest. But something had ended, or was about to. She felt it like a pressure change before a storm. That evening, just as twilight swallowed the last of the London sky, her phone lit up one final time.
Hello?
The screen showed him, seated at his desk, fully dressed in formal black, his bow tie perfectly tied, his stovepipe hat resting on a nearby shelf. A golden light poured through the window behind him.
Allison,
You look different.
I am preparing to attend the theater this evening.
Allison's heart dropped.
Ford's Theater?
Yes, a play. Our American cousin Mary insists I go.
It was the night, April 14th, 1865.
I know.
He said it without fear, without alarm, only calm acceptance.
I've suspected for some time there are whispers, letters unsigned, a strange tension in the corridors of the White House, and dreams. The same dream again and again.
You don't have to go.
Yes, I do. If I do not, what becomes of the tapestry?
The room around Allison blurred. Her hand gripped the phone so tightly, her knuckles whitened.
This was never a line to change fate. It was a mirror. You showed me the man behind the marble.
I didn't want to lose you.
You never had me to lose. I belong to history now.
He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of parchment. Carefully, he opened it, revealing the handwritten draft of the Gettysburg Address.
I rewrote a line after our talks, not to change history, just to mark it.
He held it up, and there in the margin, scrawled in his neat hand, "Thank you for listening."
You'll never forget you.
Nor I?
The image began to shimmer, not in chaos, but in peace. A glow settled over him, like sunrise through morning mist.
Perhaps our talks were my confession.
And then, he was gone. The screen went black, permanently. Allison stared at the reflection of her own tear-streaked face, framed by the void of the screen. But when she opened her notebook the next morning, a loose page fluttered to the floor. Not her handwriting, old paper, faded ink. The last paragraph of the Gettysburg Address, with a margin note, "You are part of the tapestry now." Chapter 10, A Page from Time. The world moved on. Trains hummed, lectures resumed. History classes continued. But Allison was no longer just a teacher of the past. She had spoken with it. She never told anyone about the final call, not even Nina. It was too delicate, too sacred to cheapen with explanation. Some truths weren't meant to be dissected, only held. But the page remained. She kept it in a plastic sleeve, tucked within the folds of her notes. A single, frayed sheet of parchment, bearing the unmistakable curves of Abraham Lincoln's hand, and a line never found in any archive. "You are part of the tapestry now."
Was it real?
It didn't matter. Allison began her next lecture series with renewed focus. She spoke not just of Lincoln's speeches, but of his soul. Not just of political movements, but of personal sacrifice. Her students listened more intently. They took notes with new energy. They asked better questions. Something in her voice had changed, deeper, fuller, and she no longer corrected those who referred to Lincoln as heroic. She let them, because now she understood what heroism really cost. On her desk sat the phone that had once opened a window into time. It never lit up again. No buzz, no flash, nothing. And yet, one afternoon, while preparing slides for an upcoming lecture, Allison pulled a reference book from her shelf, a thick, weathered edition of Civil War letters. Inside, tucked between pages 312 and 313, was something that hadn't been there before. A photograph, Siputoned, a man in a black coat and stovepipe hat, seated beside a fireplace. In his lap, a folded draft. On the mantel, faintly blurred, a modern object. A smartphone.
No one will ever believe me.
And that was fine. It wasn't for them to believe. It was for her to carry. History she now knew was not carved in stone. It lived. It breathed. It reached out across time, across silence, and sometimes, if you listened hard enough, it answered. In the footnote of the Gettysburg Address, in the revised university textbook edition the following year, a curious addition appeared. Recent scholarship suggests Lincoln's final months were marked by a mysterious burst of introspection, clarity, and compassion. The tapestry held.